Um, we'll talk. A lot of things went wrong tonight, of course, as you've been watching, but I don't think it is that improbable as well, this loss. If you have seen the team, the number of players missing, the game that Monaco played during the Gamper Trophy, that they're a pretty difficult side to beat in normal circumstances. And when you are, left with 11 men, when you're left with 10 men, 11 minutes into the game, it's hard to defend for 80 minutes in a Champions League away fixture. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom given the situation that we had. Yes, but we also need to talk about the things that weren't right, and that's what we need to do. But before any of that, welcome, Dom. How was this watch?
Thank you, Dev. Yeah, it was a tough watch. Of course it was. And you know what? It had to come. This day had to come. We couldn't just record every time and be all gleeful and celebrate victories every single week. It just had to happen, right? This team had to stumble somewhere along the way. Unfortunately, it does come in the Champions League when we kind of needed the win the most. I would say this was the first, well, not the first big test, but it was a huge test. And I feel like once again, it was kind of a mentality kind of thing where these things should not be happening. We should not be shooting ourselves in the foot by ourselves, right? That's not meant to be happening to a big team such as Barca, but here we are. And of course, yes, it's very easy to be very, very negative now because yes, okay, we've lost and all that stuff, but there was some glimpses of good there as well. We can try and be positive as well. Of course we can. But again, my biggest issue is the individual errors. So it wasn't really, okay, tactically we got everything wrong, or but personnel we got everything wrong. It wasn't anything like that, I don't feel, right? It was just us making some poor decisions on the spot, not really understanding what we meant to be doing, or there was some kind of misunderstanding there. I don't know what happened, right? So it was not a complete disaster, but we did shoot ourselves in the foot. That was a big thing. That's how I felt of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think it cannot be painted so black and white. There are shades of gray and everything, I think. So we were poor in certain things.
Hmm.
But let's start with the positives, right? We always are too much fixated with the negative. The positive is that the team played okay, given the fact that there are seven
Hmm.
or eight first team members who are not starting right now. So
Hmm.
away game, um, and we were hit. Even the fact that we missed Tony Olmo and so on and so forth just before it affects, correct? And
Yeah.
but the good thing is we are early in this stage, right? Now let's
Hmm.
start being practical and look at the fixture. So if we look at group stage now, with this format of Champions League, there's not really any option of falling down into Europe or anything. Just doesn't exist anymore. So there are
Hmm.
8 games, and in those 8 games, I think Bayern, Monaco, Dortmund, and Atlanta are the tough ones, right? So as to say, so there are 4 games which will be tough. We know that, and the other 4, you never know. Like in Champions League, one good day of football and you can lose, so it's possible. But those should be winnable given what we had. And then if you look at the point structure, I think people are saying different things. So we don't know because this is the first time this is happening. But if you're making
Hmm.
about 16 or 20 points, you're like, okay, you can go into the next stage. Even if you don't, then there's those playoff things that will happen, and even then you can go to the next stage. So I think there's a lot of option, and I think there's a lot of time. And the
Hmm.
fact is that we cannot be more thin than we are right now. We'll only get
Yeah.
more players back, right? And hopefully Ter Stegen will not have brain freezes in every match. So hopefully there will not be a man down 10 minutes into the game. So
Hmm.
those are the positives, right? We can't be worse than what we are right now in terms of manpower. We'll be better than this.
Hmm.
And then we'll also learn, as you rightly pointed out, Dom, the mentality thing, right? It is mentality. I think 10th minute of the game, you don't need to make a pass like that. But we sometimes always do this. And that happened. So I think we don't need to like hyperventilate. It's okay. We lost. A loss
Hmm.
is good. It happened in a game. It doesn't really define the season or the Champions League or what have you per se. So
Hmm.
it's okay. We take the hit. We take the loss. We learn
Yeah.
from it. We keep moving. La Liga is much more important. So that's one. And then the second thing is, let's go back to the beginning of the season when we started talking, and the transfer window that we had, and
Hmm.
the way the team is. I think we all agreed that the league should be the priority. This is
It
not a
always is.
Champions League winning team. It's just not. Like, let's not pretend about that. It is. So it's okay. It's an experience. Let the kids go out, play, learn Champions League, and all of that stuff. But I'm not overtly worried about this. So that's my positive spin. But over to you.
I would agree. I think the whole structure of the Champions League this year kind of favors the big teams, and we are still a big team in a group that still kind of leans towards us, right? It still favors us in the long run or the mid run, whatever you want to call it. Because yes, as you said, the chances of us getting out of the group stage and advancing forward are still high, right? No matter this loss, we can still get enough points to get out of this league group stage, whatever it's called right now. So I feel like that's the thing that we can look forward to. And yes, we still have Bayern and we have Dortmund, we have Belgrade away, all tough games, but this Barca can win those games. I think I said a couple weeks ago, I said that this Barca can actually win all the games in the group stage. And I still believe that. But these brain farts or whatever they are, I think that's what's holding us back. But because it is a brain fart. Because if that doesn't happen, and it shouldn't happen, because you had other options, it was an easily avoidable mistake. And if you avoid that mistake, you probably, you don't guarantee yourself anything. Of course you don't. But you set yourself up for, higher chance of winning anyway. And then there's a question of, okay, should Eric maybe leave his market and let him shoot and see if Ter Stegen can maybe save that? And then even if you go one goal down, maybe you have 11 players on the pitch and you have a better chance of actually equalizing, maybe overturning the score, whatever it is, right? So there's that question, because we repeat the same mistakes as before, and then maybe it was a case of just players having flashbacks, players panicking and whatnot, and then that happens. But it's also the case of maybe this Barca is, as we said, Flick is very clear and very instructive. Maybe this was a drilled sequence, right? So Ter Stegen has to go for the pivot, and the pivot has to go for the third man, right? So the pass to the fullback. That was a sequence that was practiced in training, and maybe Ter Stegen was like very adamant that he was going to respect that structure in those scenarios, right? So he wasn't going to do anything on his own that would deviate from that structure. Maybe that was the case, because Barca are very drilled right now. They are playing a certain way. They're playing in a certain sequence even. So maybe this was a pre-planned action, but then he should have known. He should have known that, okay, in this instance, this is not my optimal route, because I'm passing to a player that is tightly marked, a player that's not really in space. I'm late with my pass, number two. And number three, my target is Eric Garcia, who will not turn out of pressure, right? He won't turn his player like a Busquets, like I don't know, like some of the pivots that can do that, like a Pedri even, right? So Eric Garcia won't do that. So he has to know this pass is not optimal in any way, right? So that's why I feel like, okay, it's Ter Stegen's fault, but maybe it's also the rigidness of the system in some cases, right? Because maybe Ter Stegen had this plan in his head even before the action went ahead, right? So I'm not trying to justify his mistake, but I'm saying maybe there is some logic from his point of view, as to why he did what he did. So maybe there's that.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, if it's a drill that they have practiced, but then that's on Flick. Like, you don't. I don't think a prime Busquets can solve that.
No. So
Under
yeah, great, yeah. It
like
would be on
Monaco's a
Flick.
physical team. I mean, we'll address physicality. I think we've still seen a couple of comments on the side. Yes, it's true. For all the talk about us being in prime physical condition, this was a physical side, and we got completely owned by them, 100%. Throughout the match, they owned us on physicality. So all these talks about, we are changing completely, and Xavi was very bad, and Flick is very good. It's not so black and white. Today we faced a physical side, and we got owned completely, and we will continue struggling with them. Because suddenly these kids, will not become body weightlifters and amazingly strong people. It's just not going to happen that way. So physicality will be a problem. It's the truth. It's just what it is. It's in the I don't want to use words like DNA and all of that, but we struggle. It's just what it is. And if that's the case, and we knew it, asking Ter Stegen to pass it through Eric Garcia, who's probably not the best pivot out there, under a press from Monaco, which we knew there would be there. maybe that shouldn't have been the call or the plan, but we don't know what we don't know, so we can't talk about that. Okay, so let's talk about the physicality. We touched about it, we'll come back to that, but obviously it's the talk is about Ter Stegen. And
Hmm.
yes, there are two camps on positivity and negativity, and so on and so forth. But let's to go about the biggest problems that we have with him right now. The near post freeze has been a problem with him for ages. It's not
Yeah.
today. If you see the two goals that happened today, the first one, he was like a statue. The second one, the shot was at him. In most cases, and in many cases, elite keepers will stop that. That's it. Doesn't mean that Barca was playing very well. I mean, that goal that they slipped in the counter, so that was there. So those two goals, were they solvable, savable? Yes, they were. But we make a mess of it. Yes, we did, and that's what it is. So Ter Stegen's near post freeze has been a problem for a long time. He
Hmm.
does face problems with crosses. We know that, and we saw that today. Clearing, punching is not. He can't make up his mind on whether he should grab the ball or should punch the ball or what he should do. So that's been a problem for a long time. And then for a ball playing goalkeeper, if you are not sure about how to play the ball and get it out, and often he does well, let's not criticize it. There are many games in which he does this impeccably well. Today wasn't one of those days. The press was pretty good, and
Hmm.
for whatever reason, it just didn't come out. So has he completely lost it? Maybe not, but has he become worse off than what he was? 100%. His distribution has fallen off. There are lots of mistakes that happen in the passes and so on. So yeah, that's that's a problem. And like all problems, I mean, it's not a linear answer. Like, okay, now let's get Ter Stegen out and get somebody in. Yes, okay. So who do we buy? We don't have money to even pay like for a $2 million transfer. So who are going to buy? The only ones are in La Masia, so Diego Cohen, right, or Astrolaga. I think those are the kind of keepers that we have. Will they be able to pull this off? With I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see how Flick reacts to this. But it is definitely a problem and has been there for a while. And if Barca want to be elite, hopefully in some years, they will have to address the situation. This is not the goalkeeper with whom you'll be able to you'll be able to do that unless, of course, something changes. Dom, your thoughts?
I tend to agree, yes, and the most concerning of all, yes, okay, the shot stopping is a problem, obviously it is. But if the ball playing becomes a big problem, which it has, it has been so far, not a massive problem at all times, but he's been making more and more mistakes in areas where he's meant to be immaculate, where he's meant to be a cut above the rest, where he's meant to prove to us, to Flick, to Barcelona that he's there to stay, that he can be a Barca goalkeeper, right? Because Flick puts so much emphasis on the ball playing from the back line, that Ter Stegen on paper fits like a glove, right? He fits because he does that. That's his thing. Ball playing is Ter Stegen's thing. But if that's no longer his thing, then what does he offer, right? Okay, if he can't be a shot stopper and he can't be this modern ball playing goalkeeper either, then his value decreases rapidly, right? And that puts Barca in a very, very tough situation, because you don't have the money, and suddenly you have to spend on an additional possession that you were not planning on spending anyway, because you had more pressing matters, or in theory. But now, if this continues, this becomes a pressing matter, because a good goalkeeper, okay, yeah, a goalkeeper can be as good as his defense is, but if he's put in these situations where his defense, okay, did everything they could, and now it's up to him to show something, he has to show something. And to be fair to him, he does make a couple of good saves per game,
Yeah.
saves that maybe not everyone would make. But then, if he needs to be more, he needs to be far more consistent with those, if he's not going to perform well on the ball. And then if he's not consistent on in the shot stopping, he has to be more consistent in ball playing, right? So one thing has to be his bread and butter. That has to be his main thing. Um, Ideally, you would have a goalkeeper that does both, but obviously we're not in that position to be so so lucky to have a complete goalkeeper. So he has to do at least one thing right, and at the moment he's not really excelling in either of those things, and that is slowly but surely becoming a big problem. It's tough to say, because he does have good spells, and his ball playing can generally be quite good. He can access the players that he needs to access. But when you have this physical team that Monaco has, and then your long balls are not as effective, because okay, your forwards can now win those duels with the defenders, or your midfielders can now really turn out of pressure, then okay, he doesn't have that many options either. So it's partly on him because his ball playing is not as immaculate as it used to be, but it's also that style of play, the plan is now working against such a team that Monaco have. So it's kind of a mix of both things. It's both the tactics a little bit, but also Ter Stegen obviously has a hand or a foot in it. It's a complex topic.
It is.
Mm,
It is a complex topic, and it's not something as linear as okay, touchdown out or touchdown in. The problem has been
mm,
there. Do we have a better goalkeeper than him in the squad? I don't think so. The kids,
mm,
I may be wrong, but I don't know. But I
mm,
don't think we have a better goalkeeper. Doesn't mean that that solves our problem. The problem is that okay, you have the money to go and buy one. That's number one. If you buy one, then you don't buy in some other position where we probably need more
yeah.
help from that perspective. So it's not that Barca had lots of money and sitting there, okay, I want to change him, I want to change him, I want to change him. That's just
Mm,
not happen. So I think it's a problem that needs to be solved. And I'm sure if we are noticing it, the club is noticing it. And I think it will be solved in due course of time. But in the meantime, it is going to be challenging. And
yeah.
it is good, as someone said, that it happened now than later in the season. And last year we saw like Stegen was out for a while, and Pina came in, and some games from Pina were very good, and we were like, okay, awesome. And then some games were terrible, and
Yeah.
we were like waiting for Ter Stegen to come back, and I was there. We saw it, right? So um, this is a tough one, and but there's no doubt about the fact that today the two goals are on him, absolutely on him for a large part
Yeah.
of the game. Now let's go to the tactical part of it. I also think that Flick got it wrong after 10 after we were down to 10, because I think there should have been made like Lewandowski staying on for this long when he didn't really do much. Yeah, we can be debated. Monaco found it way too easy after the break to slip in balls behind. We were constantly caught on the break, constantly caught on the break, constantly caught on the break. So should we have looked at it differently? The subs that happened, like by the time Flick made subs, we were all gassed out. Like nobody was running anymore. So should we have been more, conservative, made for changes earlier on? There's a case to be made for that. Should we have been more compact in the way we played, or what have you? Though the argument can be made that you stick to your principles, you stick to your style of play. It doesn't matter what happens and so on. So yeah,
Mm,
both lines of argument are there. But I think even Flick wasn't perfect in reading the game after we lost 10 men. Given the shape of the squad that is, we don't really have elite players in every situation. So I think it all played in, and by the end, it was like they were just lining up. I mean, every
mm,
every attack could have been a goal, and we were chasing shadows for a majority of the game in the second half. So that's something that Flick has to address as well. It's not just all on the players, and I think I'm sure he will. He has noticed it. I'm sure he will. And as we said, right, we won't have a player down in every match. So when this happens, it's a problem. Let's take some questions here, Dom. Unless you have some thoughts on Flick, I'll pass it
I,
on.
I I do, yeah. So the thing is, okay, when you go a man down, it's very difficult to structurally make up for that man, right? You can, but you'll likely get pinned down, which is what happened. And then you do need outlets. You do need players who can bail you out of that situation. We didn't have much of that. Okay, Rafinha can be a runner. Lamine can be sort of a mid-distance runner as well. But this is where players like that Nico Williams, for example, would be very, very useful, because when you will get pinned down by better position, you will get pinned down in these situations, and you will need those outlets. You need those players to bail you out. Now, the reason Monaco were so find it so easy to play through us is because, okay, Barca's pressing shape was as usual. You had the wingers and center backs, you had the midfielder and Lewandowski on the pivots. That was the initial structure. Now you take one player out of that equation, and suddenly Monaco have so much freedom to create overloads on one side and isolation on the other side so easily. Because even with 11 versus 11 players, what happened to us was Koundé on one side and Ball on the other side were in a dilemma, right? Because they had to cover both the fullback and the winger behind them, both sides of the pitch, and their timing when the playing field was equal had to be immaculate.
Yeah.
Now imagine when you take one player out, and suddenly they cannot physically cover the area, right? They need to get help from Lamine and get help from Rafinha. But if they do get help from those players, what happens then? Monaco have three center backs. That means that they have the distribution completely free in the first phase, and they can ping those balls into the isolations on the wide side behind the opposition's line. They can do whatever they want because they don't have anyone pressing them apart from Lewandowski. And Lewandowski won't do it. He can't do it that well. He will run after the ball a bit. He will scramble a little bit. He will push a little bit forward, but he can't do it. He shouldn't be able to do it, right? So it was a really tough tactical situation. And I think we were quite compact. And at times that played against us because we were like a little narrow square in the middle.
Box, a narrow
yeah,
box.
Yeah. And then you had the wingers of Monaco kind of completely free on the sidelines, and it was very easy for them to attack.
Very easy for them to just slip in balls back to back, and we were struggling. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so I think structurally and tactically, it was very, very difficult. Now, how do you tackle that? Okay, yes, you can drop down into a low block. You can kind of pray that you can endure those attacks, and then you can hit them on the break. That's what you do. And I think Flick has done that in a sense that our verticality became more direct verticality. It became more faster. It was more instant, right? We were not really recycling the ball and then finding the isolation structurally or positionally. We were finding them quickly before the opposition can kind of restructure, right? If you saw a player out of position, opposition player out of position, you immediately attack that space. That's how we used our isolations. We were very, very like under Xavi, for example. This was the case under Xavi, where we immediately, if you see space, go for it, exploit it immediately. And that's what we did today because we had no other choice. Because positionally, tactically, we could not really outmaneuver a team that has a one extra player. You can, it's possible, but it's also very, very, very difficult and unlikely, especially a team that has so much physical advantage over you, and your players are kind of gassed out because they are running much, much more than they should be running. Because again, they are one man down, so they have to run more. It's a very, very tough situation for Flick. But yes, did he react well? I think, yeah, the sub should have been earlier. We should have brought more legs in terms of runners and outlets. But then again, our squad is thin, so it's a really, really unforgiving and ungrateful situation to be in. But yeah, it is what it is.
Completely. All right, let's take some questions. Arvind says, why do you think the substitutions took long? I thought we needed a mobile and false nine kind of striker. Well, Arvind, we're not fancy flicks, so we don't know why the substitutions took long. Having said so, however, we can only conjecture, and this is all we are conjecturing, that probably Flick didn't have the trust. He didn't have the faith that what he had on the bench was good enough to get the job done. So he wanted to be on the pitch with the best that he trusted, and those are the people who he trusted, which means that, yes, to your point, could Fatih have been brought in earlier? Maybe he could have. Could Sergio Dominguez have been brought in earlier? And the defense could have been bolstered a little bit more with Eric Garcia leaving. Maybe, right? But purely, I don't think Hansi Flick trusts that, okay, they can get the job done on a Champions League night, and that's why he left the team that he left. And by the time they came back, they were all completely out of, they could barely run. By the time you subbed off, Lamine, and you can see them, they're done for, time. So that's a problem, and it's going to be a problem because we have a very, very thin squad. So we don't know why it took some time. But what we do know is that this is the second or the third time in Champions League we've seen a red card. And our response to the red card has never been that good. Like last season, it was PSG, and we were winning that game comfortably. And then one moment, and that's it. That was the end of the game. So I think all Barca coaches need to have a plan B, that there will be a red card. And when that happens, this is how we want to play about it. But jokes apart, I think, it's a hard one. It's a hard one. Yeah. Not something that coach can. He doesn't tell the players to go get a red card, right? So it's on the players as well. And hopefully they will learn. So that's my first one. The second one is, all right, let's take some more questions for us. It's mostly on Ter Stegen, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's the thing. And to be fair to Flick, Dev, I think leaving your game breakers or your best players on the pitch was the right call, because as we remember, what Xavi had done before, it was he took off Lamine and he took off his only chance to actually do something offensively. I think Flick kind of stuck by the players. In Lewandowski's case, you could argue, okay, maybe he doesn't give you much in this game state. But I think the reasoning was always and always will be Lewandowski can score out of nowhere, right? When that ball comes into the box, no one can do it better than Lewandowski. So I think that's the reasoning behind it. Now, if that impacts your overall play too much to an extent that he's invisible and you have, 9 men instead of 10, then yes, you take him off and you put a mobile player, as someone was saying in the comments as well. Put someone who can actually be useful in the game state that you're facing. Because Lewandowski, when you're pinned down, when you have to cover large distances to get to the opposition's goal, Lewandowski won't give you much unless he is stationed far up in the danger area and stays there, right, for the whole game. But that can't happen because then Barca will be, down another man in the opposite side. So it's a tough situation. We keep saying that, but I think that's very much true. But Flick, the one thing, well, that's leaving his game breakers on the pitch because they can create something out of nothing. And Lamine almost bailed us out. Today he couldn't, but in the future maybe that will happen. And maybe Fati can come off the bench and maybe do something. Those things do change the game. Individual quality in those scenarios is what often can reign supreme or can flip the game back to your favor. That's what I'm going to say on that.
But this is the second game. Like I think Monaco got the better of us. I think, and in both games it was pretty evident they got the better of us. They played better. Let's just be honest about it. So I think that's something for Flick to actually analyze. I think in a Gamper also it was a pretty much one-way affair. And even in this game, I think yes there were mistakes and so on so, but it never felt like Barca were in ascendancy at any time in this game at all, right? So I think that's something for Flick to analyze and for them to look through. But that just tells you the quality that's there in Champions League, and that is why I think it's okay, right? Given the squad that we have, given the thinness, given the nascent nature of this project, and everything else that there is, I think if we can just take the Champions League lightly and just enjoy it, win or lose, I think that's good enough. We should not have too many hopes on this. For sure. So I think Shopnil says that I feel it's better to have types of matches now than later. So yeah, it's better. We get it done with, and we said this earlier as well, that we won't be thinner than this, what we are right now. So it'll be better.
Hopefully.
And it's not the first time we're going to lose. Also, we are going to lose. We're going to lose in the Liga as well. We're going to lose in Champions League as well. So it's good to get used to the fact that yes, there will be some losses on the way. It's been great. It's been beyond our expectations that the season has started the way that they have. But let's just be practical and honest on what the state of the squad is. All right, let's take some more questions. On Van Lee's question last time was, should you buy a striker or a goalkeeper? I still say we buy a striker, honestly. I just believe,
if we have that much money, if we have a money to spend on a proper striker, like the Haalands and if we're talking about those kind of players, then yes, it's still a no-brainer. You still go for that striker because you can get a decent enough goalkeeper theoretically for much lower. Goalkeepers are still not as expensive in today's market. They are expensive, of course. They are. Everything's expensive, especially for a broke Barcelona. But they're not more expensive than a marquee striker, and you go for those names. And I don't think that Laporta, if he wants to make a statement signing, I don't think he goes for a goalkeeper. He's not going to be, oh look, I brought in squad depth with Ter Stegen. Vote for me again. No, that's not going to happen. He's going to be, oh look, it's a Haaland. Vote for me, please. It's a Haaland, everyone, Haaland, and that's what's going to happen probably. So I think that's how Barca will look at it. And yes, I will agree with you, Dev. If given the choice between an elite, like proper elite striker and a proper goalkeeper to replace Ter Stegen, everyone's going to go. Well, Barca will probably go for number 9, and I would also go for number 9 as well.
Right. Okay. Everybody's criticizing Eric Garcia and Ter Stegen, but despite being one man down, we managed good. For me today, Rafinha was disappointing. He lacked speed, missed chances, can't dribble or finish. That's from Shubham. I think there is merit. We should not criticize only 2 people. And yes, it's true that for the longest time we held on to that 1:1. We went into the break, and then we could have probably salvaged a draw. Probably, yes. So there's that merit. Rafinha was disappointing. Yes, sometimes players will be disappointing. And Rafinha was never a great dribbler, so I don't think he'll ever be a great dribbler. What Rafinha has is his graft, and what Rafinha can do very well is in that link-up play with those pockets of space. With Dani Olmo missing, that entire aspect of the game was missing today because Pedri can't do what he does. As simple as that. So Pedri is far better in that LCM role. With Dani going out, that entire threat was gone. And that's why, that associated play that we have seen in the last 4 games wasn't there. And Rafinha, for his life, he just cannot dribble. He has never been a great dribbler. He loses balls, and that's just who he is. Is he going to become like Messi tomorrow and dribbling? I don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think we'll ever see a great dribbling Rafinha per se with control on the ball. He needs somebody around him, associated with him, with whom his game comes out. And today, those players were missing. And with 10 men, the structure went, and then he just
Yes.
didn't have anybody. He was just alone, running around, trying to do
Yeah.
things on his own and under pressure. So obviously, those mistakes were made. But again, singling him out would be probably wrong. He's done a lot of good in this season, but he's never going to be that winger who Maisie dribbles and manages things and controls that. Dom, your thoughts?
Yeah, he won't be that. He's just doesn't profile as such a player. But yes, I would, in a way, I would like to echo those sentiments that who was it, Shubham? Yeah, he said that. So the most frustrating thing about Rafinha tonight for me was the missed chances. That was the thing, because he did have a couple of really, really good chances, and he just has to do much better in those situations. Because if we look at big games, we say, okay, Ter Stegen chokes every big game in Champions League. We need to have players who don't do that. We need to have players who can consistently be at a consistently good level at the highest of levels in football, right? So, okay, if your Lamine Yamals can be at their highest in such a game, then Rafinha needs to be too, and he needs to bury at least one of those chances. He needs to do much better. At least try for a shot in those situations, not completely fumble, miss the ball, or just don't see the player coming up behind you. Stuff. So that must not happen to Rafinha. Now, of course, that doesn't undo all the good that he's done. Of course, it doesn't. But he needs to be better in those situations. Those were the moments where I was frustrated with him. Of course, he still does a lot for the team. He runs a lot. That's why he was on the pitch for as long as he was, because Flick needs him. Without him, everything probably falls apart, right? Especially when you're a man down and you need someone who can cover a lot of ground on his own and kind of try and make up for the loss of a body, literally, in the structure. So I feel like in that sense, okay, he did his job for the most part. But if you have Rafinha in those areas a lot, and he was in the middle a lot, because we saw the box a lot, we saw the diamond a lot, where Rafinha was central. You don't really control games with that. You don't even want to control games with that, because Rafinha won't give you that. He will give you quick exchanges. He will give you movement down the middle. He will give you goal scoring, or should give you goal scoring on paper, but he won't really give you domination and control in those zones without Adani Olmo, as I said, and without Pedri next to him, and without, I don't know, whoever it is, Casado, for example. He needs those players, and Barca need those players to be able to control the game, and those players were not there. It was Rafinha in the box, and Rafinha in the box can be useful, but in a completely different way, right? He speeds up the game. He brings verticality in those areas, not control. So that's kind of the difference between those two.
And also, I think it just went on to prove. I think yes, while there's a lot of media talk about Fati being back, I don't think he's still ready, because otherwise this was a prime game for us to test him out. Even though he's not the Olmo kind of player. I just don't think Pedri can do that. Pedri is best in that LCM role. Generally, that's what we have seen. So that probably might have been, and the fact that I had initially thought, and I may be wrong, that yes, this could have been a game where Fati could have been tested, but probably is going to take a little bit more time to get to the kind of fitness that is required, and then possibly be tested out in La Liga, and that's good enough. Honestly,
Yeah.
if we do in good La Liga, I'm perfectly fine. The fact that the ignominy of going to Europa is no longer there, that makes me feel super happy, because either we are in it or we are not in it, and that's okay. If we are not in it also, because I'm not expecting us to do amazing on this. Now, let's keep a couple of questions. Balde and Kunde more as an outlet. All right, so what's this question? Do you think we should use Balde or Kunde more as an outlet? I've seen a couple of times when Balde was waving at Ter Stegen when he was open, but it ended up in the center backs. Well, if you look into the way the team plays, it's basically Ter Stegen to Inigo Martinez or Kubasi. And if it's Inigo Martinez, he goes and connects with Balde. If it is Kubarsi, he mostly connects with Kunde. And then from Kunde, it's into Yamal. And from Balde, it's into Rafinha or Pedri and what have you. So that's just how the structure of the game is. Now, horses for courses, should it always be like that? Maybe, maybe not. And this is what Dom was saying, that if it's a drill that we consistently follow, if the team is not responding to that drill, or if we are struggling with that drill, then we should be flexible enough to change it. But did that happen today? Probably no. And those are questions we can't answer because we don't know what the drill was, what the instructions were, right? So conjecturing on that is wrong. But it was a problem today. That is for sure, because we saw that it was a problem, right? So on that, Adi Hutter got it square on. He noticed, he watched how we play, he played to that, and he caused us issues because we couldn't build out from the back for the majority of the game, and that was visible. Generally, what we've been good at in La Liga throughout this game, we couldn't really fluidly build from the back, and it's hard to do when you're down to 10 men
Yeah.
from minute 10. You can't really blame the coach on that, but that's just what it is. Dom, your thoughts?
Yes, I think neither Balde or Koundé are great outlets. Balde can exploit space, but he does so better when the ball is at his feet and he can run with the ball. And then if he's in open space with the ball, that's when he does the most damage, right? That's what Balde does. Now, if he use Balde as an outlet in a sense that he will receive into space high and up, okay, yes, you can do that. But then again, we talked about this a lot of times. The angles don't suit him. He's not really a cutback type of player. He's more of a open body cross type of player when he's out wide and high up. And then in those scenarios, he's just not as lethal as he maybe should be if he's going to be an outlet. Kunde, on the other hand, not an outlet at all. He's someone who's more of a deep distribution type of player. You want him deeper and outside of the opposition's block. He needs to be not too wide, so somewhere in the half space and outside of the block when he has more space, and then he can ping those balls into the box, into the danger areas, wherever you want the ball to go, right? So that's what Koundé is, on the ball at least. So I don't think either of those players is a viable outlet type. For an outlet, you need a Lamine, you need a Rafinha, or players like that. Those are your outlets. And Barca kind of couldn't access them in ideal situations because, when you go man down, it's difficult to create those isolations structurally, as I've said earlier. So that's the problem with those two players being outlets. Now, on Ansu Fati, I think the reason why we didn't see him was twofold. So, number one, when you go a man down, your players will naturally have to run much more than they would normally. Now, do you put an Ansu Fati who's just recovering, coming back from an injury, into that situation? You probably don't, right? You don't want him to exert himself too much. That's number one. And also, number two, you're playing a Monaco team that is highly physical. Again, you would force Ansu Fati into potentially uncomfortable situations, right, when he's coming off of an injury. So I think the setup wasn't really ideal or optimal for Fati to come on and make a big difference. Now, of course, I still had hoped that he would come on and maybe score a goal out of nowhere, something will happen. That would be the glorious script. But unfortunately, the game setup, the game state wasn't there for Fati to make a huge difference, and that's why he didn't.
Probably absolutely right. Okay, let's take some more. Why didn't we bring on from Fort and move Juice to CB? The striker was stronger and faster. That's a good point. And the second one is all points made are valid, but don't you think we replaced Lewa with a ball playing forward? We could have also released our defense a bit. Correct. Theoretically, you're right. But the point is, does Flick trust Fort that much? Right? We saw in Liga as well when he came in when we were 5-0 up or 4-0 up or something like that, right? So does Hansi Flick trust Fort to get the job done, right? Could we have moved into a back three? Possibly. Possibly we could have. And it's not that, Barca has not played with back three. In Xavi, we saw back three quite a few times. But does Flick believe in that system? We don't know that yet. We have never seen him play a back three with Jules Koundé as a primary center back. So could he have? Probably. Did he? He didn't, for whatever he saw. Did we suffer through the game? Yes. Will he make adjustment to it is what we need to probably look into. And that we'll only understand as the other game comes through. Now, the other question was ball playing forward. Yes, if we have a ball playing forward, like Dani Olmo, attacking mid, makes all the difference in the world. But who? We don't have one. Like, I don't think Fati is a ball playing forward. I don't think, I just don't think we have any. Maybe Vitor Roque, who's at Betis right now. He was playing a lot of ball yesterday against Getafe. So, but apart from that,
With Roque. No, with Roque.
so apart from that, I don't know. I don't think we have a single ball playing forward. Like that was Messi, and that was it. That was gone long back. I think. No, what's your thought?
Yeah, it's kind of false nine profile, right? You could have Olmo there, but almost injured. You could have Joao Felix there, but he's gone.
He's
You could
gone.
have Gundogan there, but he's gone as well. So you don't really have options. You have Ferran Torres, who's not really
He's
that
not
player
that player.
anymore. No, not anymore. Ansu Fati, not really the type of. I mean, he can be. Fati can be simple and effective as a ball playing center forward. He can do those link ups. He can create triangles. He knows how to move well. But again, against a physical Monaco side where he's probably going to get manhandled in the middle and tightly marked, and if he's forced to do some complex things with the ball, he won't do that, right? So he won't be that player for you just yet. So no, we don't really have options. You could throw a midfielder up there. I don't know which one though. I mean, Pablo Torre potentially, but no. I mean, I just don't
He
see
just
it
doesn't have
happening,
that
right?
quality
Yeah.
yet. I just don't think that he's there yet.
Yeah. You could
He,
have you have Rafinha potentially. He's not a ball playing center forward, but he can be physical enough maybe to hold off his markers and then do those layoffs and run into space. So you could have Rafinha as a number 9. That could theoretically work. He has the build, he has the movement, the sense for goal, the ball striking. Some of the components are there. He's not a combinatory type. He's not a link up monster. He's not someone who operates in tight spaces, as we said, but he can maybe offer you more movement, more mobility in that sense, and then combine that with some physical presence as well. So maybe that could have been a play, but then again, it doesn't really solve everything, or it's just
with
not
too many
enough.
holes in the side, like you plug this one and there are three more standing on that side. It's hard for a coach to to solve all of them. So Paul says, seeing as how Rafa Lamine were outlet, should have pushed Martin on pushing Balde forward and sacrifice Lever. Yes, we could have sacrificed. We already discussed this, but I think Flick trusts in him, and Lewandowski is still the player, the only player in the team who can possibly score out of nothing. And you've got to take that chance with him, given how thin our scoring chances are. Is this the right thing? No, but do we have a better alternative? We don't, unfortunately. That's the situation that we have. So could we have sacrificed Lever and done what you're talking about, Paul? Yes, probably. That's a tactical play that could have happened as an adjustment to Eric Garcia leaving, and we are down to 10 men. But and we said this that the adjustment didn't really happen. But could it have happened? Does Flick believe that he has a team who can do that? I don't think he does, because that's the 11 that he put, knowing
Yeah.
everything that's happening. So we won't know. Rafa playing in the 10 and the forward line. Rafa has been playing as a 10. I don't like consistently with Flick. But yeah, sacrificing a Lewandowski who didn't really bring that much in terms of pressing or, controlling that 10, the deficit could have been a play. But Flick went with the fact that, okay, he's my scorer, and I would like to take my chances with at least trying to equalize or winning or whatever. And he kept it on, right? And that's something that Flick has to contemplate and come up with answers on whether that's the right thing to do or not. And that we'll get to see in the next one. I think somebody else said, "Do you think we need more speed in the back line?" Personally, no. I think we are building our team, or our philosophy is to play from the back, with Inigo and Kubarsi making those passes, and they're very well suited for that kind of a game. So I don't think we need more speed. And Barca will never be, physical demons who are just running and sprinting and catching them up. It will never be that. It will be positional always, and I think that's how it should be. Like the best Barca sides, I think, did Piqué have speed? No, he didn't. But he could marshal that entire backline right from the base of the center field when he was at the height of his powers. So it's not a speed thing, probably. There will be more physical sides, but it's just how you contend. What's the block that you set up? How do you control? How do you win the ball up the pitch more often so that it doesn't be in this situation? Dom, your thoughts?
Yes, it's stopping those things at the source, right? That's what we talked about. But we'll see. I mean, when it comes to speed, we'll see what Araujo comes back. We'll see what Flick goes for, right? He probably sacrifices Inigo Martinez, but then you have Araujo instead of Inigo, and you lose something. It's always a trade-off, right? So we'll see what will Flick value more. On paper, Araujo, the prime Araujo, it's something that this Barca highline potentially does need. Okay, maybe he's there and he fixes some of the things that are bothering us, because Inigo was kind of a bit sluggish and late to some challenges today. He was a bit. He kind of showed his age against this more physical and more powerful side. Yes, okay, that's a fair point. So I feel like Araujo coming in, he does give you something different. He does give you that edge potentially in times of need. But then again, we'll see how much that impacts the as I said, the in possession things that we value so much, because ultimately that's what wins us games. It's not going to be an Araujo Hail Mary tackle in our box. It will be something that we orchestrate on our own with the ball at our feet. So I feel like that's what Flick should focus on, and I think that's what he will focus on. He will value our in possession stability more than the off the ball, Hail Marys that you could get through physicality alone, right? So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a difficult thing to say because, okay, yeah, you could always use more speed. Of course, it's always going to be more beneficial, but the ball is always quicker than the man. So that's what you have to think about as well. The ball is what matters to us the most.
All right, we'll take a couple of more and then probably wrap this up. Barca fan said it's kind of annoying that each game we want to see the club at a bigger stage. We can't really judge the performance because of terrible mistakes early on, and it's true. It is true. And we have been for long judging coaches because,
Yeah.
and probably treating them very harshly and unfairly because of mistakes done by players. And it's happened all the time and it keeps happening. So yes, today was a terrible mistake. You are with a new team, which has confidence, which has been winning, and you go to play many of them their first Champions League games, and in 10 minutes you are down to 10 men. And from there it's an uphill battle. But I think first half we contended pretty well. And we have to cut down these mistakes. Now, is there a cheat code for cutting down mistakes? There isn't. It's just trial and error. It just has to go on, and they have to find those people who have that mentality, who can play, and even then there will be mistakes. So unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. We all, as fans, feel the frustration, as Barca fans, as you do. You're right. And every time it happens, last year, I think one game. I think if that PSG game goes well, Xavi is still our coach. It's just as simple as that. The fact that we lost it out, that affected a lot. So, and that was just one mistake from Araujo, right? And so on. So, yes, we have to cut down these mistakes. Now, how? I wish I had a clear, easy answer. I don't. And thankfully, I don't have Flick's job because I would suck at it. But he probably has to kind of solve for it. Dom, your thoughts?
No, same thing. I don't think anyone envies Flick when he's in these situations, especially in Xavi. Especially Xavi was in a much worse situation than Flick is right now. I felt like, yes, okay, he was inexperienced and all that stuff, but it was just in a very, very unforgiving role, right? His job was almost impossible, right? There was no scenario in which he actually does what everyone wants him to do, because everyone wants him to be the next Pep and so on and so forth. But that was just not going to happen. So from the start, Xavi was kind of, I don't want to say doomed, but he was really at a disadvantage from the very, very start. So yeah, this is these jobs, the Barca job in particular, is such a different animal than any other job in football. I feel like it's just you have to be more than just a coach. You have to be so many different things to succeed as a Barca coach. So best of luck to Flick, because he will need he will need
You'll
the
need
luck.
it.
He
You will
will
need this
he
luck.
will absolutely need that. Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay, so that's
yeah,
we just got to start wrapping this up. But I think
yeah.
it's not so bad, honestly. 2-1, not a bad result. We are not going to go down on Europa, however bad we play. That's another positive of this game. But having said that, the first three game nights, it was a bit boring though, Dom. Like all the games, it like generally Champions League has been much more faster, zippier, more interesting. The group stages is what I would say. This time around, there were a lot of boring games in both the nights. So I don't know. Time will tell whether
Yeah.
this format is good or not, or what have you. I just felt that the games were very leggy, many of them, and wasn't that exciting, and so on and so forth. So we'll see. But the good part of this format is that we will not go down to Europa, which is awesome. uh, it's to the
Always good.
moon.
Yeah.
So hopefully we play. And as I said, Dortmund, Bayern, and Atlanta are going to be tough. So we got to be ready. Hopefully we get the players back by then. Hopefully there'll be some games at home and we can win some. And then even if we don't pass in this stage, there'll be the playoffs and we still will get another chance to qualify. So hopefully there's opportunity. Let's not it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's the first game. It's all right. Much more tougher is the Liga game that's coming up because these kids will be completely wiped out. So I don't know what they're
Yes.
going to put up in on Sunday, which is going to be a much more difficult situation because as I personally feel that we should just focus on the league this time around and Copa del Rey and just play Champions League for just the heck of it, just to enjoy it and so on. Dom, your thoughts before we wrap it up?
It's difficult because we don't really have the squad depth
Yeah,
to fully rotate the team, right? You can't even play the B team because your B team is playing anyway, so you can't really rotate enough for it to matter to rest all the key players because they all have to play. It's such an unforgiving situation. But yes, I would agree with the point that okay, La Liga is our focus. That should always be our focus. If we achieve something in the Champions League, and that can be, I don't know, just exit the group stage and go, I don't know, a couple of stages up. That's fine. That's for us. That's success, right? Um, and the league, what you do domestically will always will be priority, right? Because we have the team to compete in the league, not just compete to win the league. We can win the league. That's just the way it is. We have the quality. Now, do we have the depth? That's a different conversation because if everyone is fit, I would say Barca can not maybe cruise through the group stages of Champions League and La Liga, but they can be very successful in
yeah,
both. But that's just such a question mark because we don't know. We don't know enough players just keep dropping like flies, so it's tough to say. But if we are fit and everyone is there, we have the quality now, and we have the coach that so far has been very very good and in playing to that team strengths. That matters a lot. Individual quality matters a lot. Now, squad depth, the bodies, the literal bodies, they matter a lot as well. So that's the main question. So yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of a mixed day for us because we had a huge day at Barca Football, guys. If you're still watching, thank you so much. 51 minutes in, today. We just announced a huge change at Barca Football. We are starting a different model. We'll be introducing paid content as well, and we will expand our content pool to a large palette of different types of analysis, but we will also have paid analysis as well. So do check it out. We have published a piece on Flick today. It's a pretty in-depth thing on all things Flick, all the tactics, all the changes that he's making. So please do check it out. We do have a YouTube page. We have a podcast as well. We do these lives almost every game basically. So we're happy to have you and thank you for all the support. Yeah, Dev, any last words before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, check us out, guys. We've been doing this for a while, and thank you. We wouldn't have done it without you guys. So all of you who are right now being with us, asking questions, this is what makes it so much more fun because, we don't know any of you. And the fact that we get to know you and that we can have this conversation, that is so amazing. That is incredible because we are just like you guys, right? We are nothing special. We're not some, so it's thank you. That's all we can say. We can thank you so much for being there, for supporting us. Really, really appreciate it. Summarizing, Ter Stegen is a problem. Yes, we know this. What's the solution? Well, we can keep debating, but it is a problem. No doubts about that. Second, for all the questions about Barca being physically super strong, like a army of Avengers, we saw it. It's not true. Faced against a really physical side, they will struggle, and they struggled all the match today against Monaco, and it's not the first time. It was the same in Gamper. So we're not there. And it's not like a switch that you put in and then immediately everybody becomes stronger. So that's challenge, right? We cannot wait to have all the players back because as long as this situation stays, we're woefully thin and we will struggle. Now my biggest concern is the game on Sunday in La Liga because that will be challenging given the situation that the team is in and the number of hours minutes that they have played. So hopefully Flick will be able to put a decent side out who can, at least play and hopefully win because that's much more important than this. And regarding Champions League, I think it's just early days, guys. Like we have all the opportunity in the world to actually qualify, and I think we will qualify if you ask me today. So nothing to feel bad about. It's good that it happened. It's a reality check that I think the team also needed, which is great. So we'll get that. And hopefully we'll bounce back stronger. And with that, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for making it so worthwhile for us. Thanks for commenting, asking questions, and so on and so forth. Thank you so much. Viscal Barca, and see you on the next one.